Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today I am here to check in with my Cultivate What Matters power sheets and talk about my quarterly goals. Starting last year in 2020, I started to approach goals a little bit differently in terms of annual goals and then breaking them down into quarterly goals. And I started creating smaller goals on a quarterly basis that would allow me to have more of a focus on my annual goals, as well as something specific and tangible that I could check off at the end of every quarter. I felt like I was making progress in past years on my annual goals, but it was harder to track and it was harder to really know if I was making progress when I wasn't breaking things down quarterly. And so since breaking things down quarterly, I've been sharing that journey with you, and each quarter I share a video where I check in with last quarter's goals, share with you how they went, how did they serve me as a quarterly focus, as a quarterly goal, and then what are my goals for the upcoming quarter, and that includes an annual goal check-in. I have surprise. I don't know if a surprise is the right word. You might be surprised by both the number and the goals represented in my Q3 goals. But first, let's check in with my Q2 goals and talk about how they went. So if you have not watched my annual goals video, I would recommend starting there because all of my quarterly goals are pieces of my annual goal. So I have 6 annual goals that I am focusing on in 2021. And in quarter 2, I actually chose 8 quarterly goals to focus on. So 2 of my annual goals they each had 2 quarterly focuses. So let's start with the first one. These are they're in a particular order for me. They're in Roy G. Biv order based on my color coding system. They are not in any particular priority order or amount of work order. So the first one was based on our relationship goal, and that was to spend quality time together. And while I feel like I did a good job of this, not in the way that I originally envisioned this goal playing out. And the biggest reason for that is when I set these quarterly goals, think back to like the end of March, and things were starting to open up, but not really. Like, there were still questions about when the vaccine rollout was going to be available to everybody who wanted it, especially here in the US. There wasn't really a sense of when things were going to open back up. And so when I made this goal, I envisioned it as quality time together, my fiance and I, one-on-one by ourselves. And then all of a sudden things really started to open back up. Everybody that we know and love here in New York got their vaccines, and we were really able to start to spend time with other people safely. So while I do think we did a good job of this goal and we did spend a lot of quality time together in Q2, it was a lot with other people. It was mostly with other people. So I would probably still give this goal like a 9 out of 10, even though it came to fruition very differently than I originally intended. Okay, the next quarterly goal fell into spend time doing things that make me happy, and that was to get caught up on One Little Word. If you don't know what One Little Word is, it's a memory keeping word of the year kind of reflection type project that's hosted by Ali Edwards. And you pick a word of the year and you do a project every month to embrace that word and bring it more into your life and to really figure out ways to keep it at the forefront of your mind, rather than a lot of times when we just pick words of the year and then we forget about them by February. And so that's what I love about this project, is it helps me keep my word of the year at the front of my mind. Well, the beginning of the year was very hectic for us. And so even though I purchased all the supplies and was ready to get started, I was very behind. And so my plan for Q2 was just to do 2 months at a time. That way I would be caught up by the end of the quarter, and I am on track to do that. I have not quite finished one of the months, but that's because it's a habit project, and so you do it every day for a month and then reflect on it at the end. So I'm in the process of doing that. So I am definitely on track to be all caught up by the end of this month. So 10 out of 10 for that goal. The next 2 quarterly goals were both related to my business goal for the year. And the first one was to work on my online courses that I have personally signed up for. Maybe like a 3 out of 10. Like, I got things organized and I know what courses I have and how many modules each of them has, but I did very little in this quarter. But I think I have a plan going forward of how I'm going to implement it into my schedule regularly. Again, I think the overarching theme for this quarter was things opened up and we ended up with a lot more social commitments than I had originally envisioned going into this quarter. So this goal didn't really pan out, but I'm okay with it. And then the other business goal was to relaunch my personal goal setting course, Accelerate Your Goals. And I did that. As of the time I'm filming this video, I have one more session with this round, and it has just been, it's been incredible again. The reason I put this second launch of the course in my goals is because there were some things I needed to do to up level the course experience, not necessarily on the user side. From their standpoint, not really anything changed, but I put in a lot more automations behind the scene that made my life a lot easier for this round than the first round that I did a lot of manual things. So that is why it ended up as a goal. You will see, spoiler alert, for Q3, I don't have a goal to relaunch the course. That does not mean I'm not relaunching it. I am planning to do a fall session that will go on sale in Q3, but I don't need to do any upgrades. I don't need to do any changes. I just need to run the same machine that I have built during these past 2 sessions. And so that's why it doesn't need to be in my power sheets. The next quarterly goal was our finance focus goal, and that was to combine our finances operationally. So we have not legally combined any of our finances. We don't have any joint bank accounts yet, but I created a joint spreadsheet. I now have all the logins to all of our accounts, and I'm tracking our finances on a joint basis versus me just tracking mine individually, and like Sam paying me for half of the rent and all of those kinds of things. It is so much smoother now doing it this way. It's a little bit more work because I'm also tracking his expenses, but it is just much easier than it was before. And now I have a much better picture of what our joint finances look like. And we started having conversations about joint financial goals rather than just our own individual financial goals in terms of like savings and retirement and things like that. And so it was a really great like quarter and from that perspective. And I feel really on top of where we're at financially. Like it feels really good. And I have mentioned this in a few places, but the way that we are approaching our finances, I got this idea from Emily Lay in her book, A Simplified Life. And what she talks about is what her and her husband decided is that somebody is the secretary and somebody is the CEO. It doesn't have to be gender specific in terms of who is who, but it did make more sense for her and for us, for me to be the more secretary position. All that means is that I am tracking our finances day to day. I know what our bank account balances are. I know how much we're spending and you know, this, that, and the other. And then Sam, like Emily Lay's husband, is the big picture. Where's our money going from an investment standpoint? What does retirement accounts look like? All of the big picture investing type stuff. Luckily, that's what Sam does for a living, so it makes that decision very easy. But it is just working out so well in our joint spreadsheet, and it's been really good. All right, the next quarterly goal was related to my lose weight goal, and that was to focus on my movement. I really felt like mentally I just needed a break from any sort of food tracking. It doesn't mean that I just like let it all go and ate whatever I want for 3 months. That definitely did not happen, but I really focused in on my movement this quarter. I focused on getting more steps in. I focused on getting on the Peloton, and this month I am on track. I have 5 days left of getting a perfect month on my Apple Watch, and I'm so proud of that, y'all. Like, I am so proud of that. And so this goal, I feel like, was just such a good foundation. You'll see what my goal is related to this annual goal when we get to Q3. But it's a good foundation for doing the harder part. For me, the food aspect of losing weight is much harder than the exercise piece of it. And it's also the much bigger impact. Like, what you eat makes way more of an impact on losing weight than movement can. So, but I'm glad I did this. I'm glad I took a break for a quarter, and I'm glad that I focused on a foundation of movement, and I have that routine. It's set in my routine, and I will continue to do that as I focus, spoiler alert, on food in Q3. I didn't say it, but 10 out of 10 on both of those goals. Okay, the last 2 quarterly goals were both related to our physical space goal, now that we're here in our apartment. And the first one was to create and establish a cleaning routine. I feel like I'm 75% of the way there. The cleaning routine's planned, like I created it. I am not always 100% consistent with it. It's not perfect in terms of being consistent. Now, what I don't know is if that is, I need to adjust the plan so that it's something I can be consistent with, or is it something I just need to let go that I'm not ever going to be super consistent with it, and I just do my best related to what the plan is. So I would I mean, I feel like I did a good job on this goal. I am not carrying it over in my power sheets to Q3. That does not mean that the cleaning routine is not going to stay on my calendar. Obviously it is. And if tweaks have to be made as I figure out what works and what doesn't work for me, that's great, but it's not going to take up space in my power sheets anymore. And then the last quarterly goal was to finish building all the furniture and finalize all the decor in our apartment. And I would say we are 95% of the way there. All of the furniture has arrived and has been built and is in its place. All of everything that we have that needed to be hung up has been hung up. And for the most part, everything we need to function in this apartment is good and set. There are a couple places that still need like some decor items. And that is that trip to Home Goods that I put on multiple months and still have not made it up to Home Goods. I think I just underestimated not wanting to go all the way up there. It's not close to our apartment. Like the one Home Goods in the city is pretty far and it's hot. It's hot in the city, right? Like it got hot early this year. And so like the 2 times that I had it on my calendar, it happened to just be a really hot day or something else came up and I just keep putting it off. We'll go eventually, or I'll just order online. I was actually in Target the other day and I was kind of like shopping in the home section and I saw something and it was a pretty reasonable price and I was like, should I just buy it here instead of waiting to go all the way to Home Goods? So we might just shop it more kind of close to us places. It just is more expensive than if we went up to the Home Goods. But that's like the 5% that we're not done. It's like a couple throw pillows, a basket for our blankets in the living room, a couple picture frames, and like a fake plant. Like once we get those things, then we will be done. So I feel like, you know, this goal gets a 9 out of 10, but I feel good about the work that we did do this quarter. All in all, it was a very good quarter and I feel really good about the progress that we've made. Again, the only one I feel like that really didn't happen at all was working on my own online courses that I've signed up for. But when I think about all of the things outside of the apartment that we did not anticipate going into this quarter, I'm proud of all the progress that I've made. So let's move into the new quarter. Before you jump into the quarterly refresh, the Cultivate What Matters Power Sheets, which is the goal planner that I use, has you do an annual check-in and has you revisit your annual goals and think about if there's any that you'd like to change or if there's anything you'd like to add or anything you'd like to take off. So I will tell you and then show you, I have changed 2 of my annual goals in terms of wording. The first one is our relationship goal. What I originally had written there was solidify our relationship and prepare for marriage. Not that those are not things that we're doing, but I think I underestimated the amount of my time that wedding planning was going to start to take again once things started to get back into motion. And now that our wedding is getting closer, I spend a lot of my free time wedding planning. And so I could either keep it out of my power sheets and just have less goals, or I could put it in my power sheets to kind of help encourage me to break it down and keep moving. So what I did was I changed our relationship goal for the year to plan our dream wedding, so that for the next 2 quarters, it is not a surprise when I am pretty much strictly focused on wedding planning. Now that does not mean that we will not continue to have date nights and do things focused on our relationship, but when we do, it likely will be somewhat wedding focused. Like we're having a wedding conversations, we've started premarital counseling, like there's just pieces of our time together that are going to be focused on the wedding. The other one that I changed was my business related goal. And what I'd written down at the beginning of the year was build a profitable business. And when I was revisiting my annual goals, what I realized was that I've done that. Like since I've started tracking my expenses, my business is very profitable. That's not not an issue, but that's not what I wanted. Those are not the words that I wanted to write. What I changed it to was grow my business. I have tracked my expenses for the first half of the year. I know what my profits are, and now I just want to grow them and I want to increase the profit within my business. And so I changed my annual goal to reflect that. And then before we move into the quarterly goals, I will say there were 2 annual goals that I almost didn't rewrite because I don't plan to have action items for them for the rest of the year. I already feel like where we are at this point, like if the year ended today, I feel good about the progress that we've made and I'm good. Like I don't feel like we need any more action items. And that is our physical space goal and our finance goal. I went ahead and rewrote them on my annual goals page. Mostly the finance one to just, actually both of them, to remind me as like as just a mindset. Like just something to keep in mind. I don't have any specific action items for finances anymore that I will incorporate in my power sheets or any quarterly goals, and same with our physical space, but I want to keep the mindsets of being intentional and thoughtful about my spending, our spending, but really it's me, and taking care of our home and making our physical space a priority. Those are just now going to be underlying mindsets that I want to keep in the forefront of my mind for the rest of the year. So with that said, I obviously only have those remaining 4 goals represented in my quarterly goals for this next quarter, and I only have 5 quarterly goals. So one of them has 2, and then the other 3 only have 1. So let's start with the relationship goal. I just put make progress on the wedding. Like, I didn't get specific really at all. I just wanted to make sure that I'm including action items on my power sheets every single month that are focused on moving wedding planning forward. So the couple of things that I jotted down in the action step section are the hotel blocks, on-site plan, flowers, guys attire. There are so many things. I have a spreadsheet. That's where I'm planning the wedding. I get a lot of questions about what wedding planner are you using, etc. I'm using a spreadsheet. That's all. I know that is not as exciting as a wedding planner, especially for a planner girl, but it is just what's working the best for me right now. The next 2 quarterly goals are both related to spending time doing things that make me happy, and kind of like last quarter, both of them are about getting caught up on things. Things that once I'm caught up on, I would like these to be regular things that make me happy and things that I do on a regular basis. But what I find is that when I am behind on them, I feel overwhelmed to even get started on them in the first place and to even pick up where I'm at. And that's how I felt with One Little Word, and that's why I focused on that this quarter. And so these next 2 are very similar to that. The first one is to get caught up on my book notes. So I like to transfer my notes from nonfiction books that I read. I typically will highlight or sticky note. If it's from the library, I will mark things that I want to go back and reference. But I want to put them all in a notebook. And I started doing it at the beginning of the year. I did it with the very first nonfiction book that I finished this year, and I have not done it since. So my plan for this quarter is to do 1 book a week, and then I will be all caught up. The other one is to get caught up on my memory keeping. If you watched some of my planner videos at the very beginning of the year, I started memory keeping in my Moxie Life planner, and I got through the end of February. That was the last week that I did, and I haven't touched it since. And there's a lot of things that have gone on, but I think the biggest one was once I got behind, it was intimidating for me to pick it back up again. And so I am planning to get started with that again. And my plan for this goal, or breaking this goal down, is to both do the current week and then 1 prior week. The current week because it's fresh in my mind, and that is more beneficial to just get that done. And then to go back and do 1 prior week. And now I just realized that I already also did my July before I filmed this video, and I should have added another action step. I might actually still add it. That's getting all the photos printed. That's a step that I can just get done and get out of the way. And then weekly, I will work on actually doing the process of catching up. The next quarterly goal is my business related goal. And I say it's a business related goal, that's the color that I gave it. It really is also kind of a life goal, but the goal for this quarter is to maintain my routines during a transition. And there's 2 transitions here that I'm really talking about. One that's already started, which is life getting back to normal and travel coming into play, social events coming into play. I want to make sure that the routines that I have cultivated and established over the last 12 months don't go anywhere. The other transition that is coming in September is going back to the office. I have been working from home for 15 months at this point, and so we are headed back to the office 3 days a week starting in September, and that is going to be a massive transition. And so I wanted a goal that was really going to allow me to focus on making sure that my routines that are important to my business for sure, and then also to my life, don't go anywhere. And so those routines are my AM routine, my communication routine, my PM routine, my lunchtime routine. It's gonna look very different, but what pieces of my lunchtime routine do I wanna make sure that I either move to a different part of the day or keep doing? And then my content batching routine, and making sure that one really is the transition of social life coming back in, and making sure that I still make time to film and batch my content instead of doing it week by week like I was pre-pandemic. And then the last quarterly goal is my lose weight goal, and that, like I mentioned earlier, is going to be to focus on food, but really I'm following a program that I am so excited that I finally signed up for. If you watch my quarterly favorites video, I talked about a podcast that I still highly recommend. If you are like, I can't invest in a program right now and I just need some amazing free content focused on weight loss, Losing 100 Pounds with Corinne is amazing. And she has 4 basics that she considers the foundation to weight loss. And you have to do these 4 things every single day in order to lose weight. And you can learn all about that in her podcast, and also she has a free course on her website. I'll leave that link down below if you want to check that out. But I did upgrade and pay for the paid version of her membership, which comes with additional course lessons and also some accountability, some ongoing accountability. There's a Facebook group, you get an individualized accountability group, and you get to order a specific planner, which I already ordered. I'm so excited about. It's not here yet, but I'm so excited. But I am just diving into this program. Like, just listening to her podcast has made such a difference in my mindset already that I have to imagine that her paid program is going to make a difference. And so some of the things I wrote down were the 4 basics, work on the 4 basics. And if you watch my monthly goals video that will be up in a couple days, you will see those actually incorporated into my daily habits. Going through all the coursework, journaling is a big thing for her, and then tuning into the lives that are part of the group and the program. So those are my quarterly goals. Yes, I only have 5, but I know that they're going to take up a lot of time. Like, all 5 of those goals are going to be a significant time commitment around all the other summer things that I have going on for the next 3 months, around all the other things that I am continuing to do, like launching the course and the cleaning routine that may not show up in my power sheets, but are still taking up space on my Google Cal. So I'm excited. I'm always excited for new goals, but I feel like these are goals that are all really important for different reasons, whether it is just my mental health, actually wedding planning, losing weight, and then maintaining my routines and prioritizing those. So that is going to be it for this video. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. But it was harder to each had 2, does that make any sense? To open up, but like vaccines weren't, that will, like, it will go for sale. All the furniture arrived and is built and put away. You get your